Hello and welcome to the next chapter, and this is the very first video, and this is where you will start coding. And it's going to be interesting, especially for those of you who are like new to coding, which I assume most of you will be new to this coding. There is an additional challenge as well, something that I've noticed as a tutor. Again, not trying to brag or something, but I've been teaching for like some 12 years professionally. And before that, already way back when I was young, I was already teaching my classmates and friends and stuff like that, because many of them were struggling coding as well, which is probably where I got the idea that I might be good at teaching. So, what I've noticed is when it comes to first time coding, there is the challenge of learning to code, which already is a new experience. And another challenge is that a lot of new developers would be new to using computers as well. That may seem a little strange, but it does. And especially, in the last 10, 12 years, more and more people just get everything done on their mobile phone and in some cases from their iPads. So what has happened is, at least before in the olden days, people would have to use computers at least for some of the work. But now, with a lot of things happening on that mobile phone and tablet things, there are many who can simply get by their entire life without actually ever touching a computer. So what I have noticed in many of my batches is that because I focus on teaching first timers, I've noticed that a lot of people are in fact not only new to coding, they're also new to using computers. And that is okay. So if you are already familiar with using computers, now what I mean by using computers, you'll see for yourself in a few minutes. What I mean by that is that you might be new to, if you are new to even using computers, like if you bought a new computer just for the sake of this course and to become a developer, then it's okay. I will go ahead and show you some steps which may, some people might consider like, okay, not really necessary, but in fact, in my experience, it is very necessary. So I will be doing that also. So don't worry about it if you are something that happens when you're learning anything, and including coding, of course, is sometimes you feel um, sometimes you feel like, hey, that is so um, not very smart. Like, hey, how come I didn't know how to do that? I'm like an adult. And I'm a working person. How come I don't know how to do stuff like this? Something so simple. It's okay. There are so many simple things which can be very complex when you are learning something new. So let's keep that in mind as we continue in this course. Okay. So let me go ahead and here. So the first thing is right then. So in this chapter, we will be learning about basic HTML tags. All right. But more importantly, what I would like you to understand is that you need to, oh, I didn't show the screen. Hold on, hold on. There you go. Yeah. So basic HTML tags. But first, there are some simple things which some of you may be able to do it without any help, but I know as a experienced tutor, there are some who may find the whole process extremely difficult. Things like there is something called as a project folder. In programming, usually what we do is whenever you're working on something, you're working on software development. So you need to ensure that you are ready with what is called as a project folder. A project folder is the one that contains all your code. You may remember from our earlier videos that unlike other programming languages like C# and .NET, we don't have a IDE in web development. So you are responsible to create all the necessary things yourself. Now that might sound like an additional complexity, and of course, beyond this course, we'll talk about that at the end of this course. Beyond the course, if you go into advanced learning or software development, there are tools, of course, which solve some of the IDE lacking problems. But in general, a lot of things in web development, you have to learn to do it yourself. There's not much tooling help like how you may have in C# and Java and so on and so forth. You'll get used to it. It may seem strange, but then again, if you're a new developer, you may not even miss it because you never used it. But of course, I started with those tools and I do miss it sometimes. But anyway, so the first thing you will show you is how to create your project folder. But before we get into it, I want to talk about something. I want you to understand that when you're learning something, again, programming specifically, I highly recommend, I know this seems silly, a pen, oh, sorry, a book, a notebook, and a pen and paper. It may seem silly. Obviously, these days nobody writes, nobody gets a notebook. Maybe some people do, but I've not seen many people use it. But in my experience, I do a lot of training, I do a lot of batches. What I've noticed is, I even today, obviously, I have a pen and paper. I didn't just take these things just to make this video. I always have pen and paper. I always jot down things. Even right now, when I'm learning something, I always go ahead and make sure that I jot down things. It really, really helps. It's not mandatory, but in my experience, I have felt that people who take notes with their hand, they seem to remember things more easily. Maybe it's because you're putting in some kind of a manual effort to making notes. So if possible, try to take that advice of mine. Second thing is, now, there is a certain section of the developer community, and the thing is, there are some people who believe that you must remember every aspect of programming. As you will see in this chapter and the future chapters, as we do more and more coding, you will realize that there is simply too much for one person to remember. Okay, now, again, there are some developers, especially experienced developers, senior developers, by the book developers, who insist that you should not take any outside help when you are becoming a software developer. It's frowned upon and sometimes even looked down upon. But I myself, I'm not in that category. As a teacher, as a tutor, I believe that any kind of help that you can take to learn better, to become a better software developer, you should take it. So during the class, even myself, even though I've been coding since I was 15, I'm 40 now. So I've been coding for 25 years. But still, even today, when I'm working on a project, I have no problems looking up information on the internet. I have no problems, especially AI. In the last 1 year, AI has really become very, very useful for me. I've already talked about it in the earlier videos, and I'll be showing how to use AI whenever I do some coding, because you might also want to use it, because it is happening, guys. It is happening, and you can't escape it. Even if, let's say, you for some reason don't want to take extra help from online resources, from example code, from AI, but other people are doing it. Like, for example, I am doing it. So when I'm working on a project these days, I always use AI. It helps me. If something that can be done in, say, in a day, let's say I usually work for about 4 hours when I'm working on a project. So if I work for 4 hours, before, without AI, it may have taken 6 hours. But now with AI, I'm able to save a lot of time and reduce the amount of errors. So I'm not ashamed of using AI, even if some people think, oh, you are a developer, you must know everything in your head. I don't really subscribe to that concept. So please go ahead. Any kind of extra help you need while you're learning, while you're coding, while you're doing assignments, and even when you start working. I know for a fact there are a lot of companies who have started buying bulk subscriptions for AI for their employees because it helps them get things faster. If not AI, then online resources, example code, and stuff like that. So please do not hesitate to use external. I'm not saying you should copy or plagiarize content. No, I'm saying take help. Taking help is not plagiarization. Like whenever you do an assignment as part of this course, you can look at the example code, but nothing is stopping you from taking help from the example code and making it your own. Okay, so just remember that. Please remember that. Do not hesitate. I'm saying this again and again because there are some developers who look down upon it, but I don't think that's right, because now we are in a different era of software development. Maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when the internet wasn't that widely available, when AI wasn't that widely available, the software industry was still very new. Maybe it was expected that you remember everything. But now, there is so much information. I mean, I believe I mentioned this before, and I'll again keep talking about it. Today, the job of a developer has become so complex. A developer has to do so many, many things. I really, in many ways, I'm glad that I'm already an experienced developer, because if I were to start my career today, I would be overwhelmed if I was a younger person, because the amount of things are expected from me right from the first day is so immense. It would be, sort of like apprehensive to me. So yes, any kind of help that it will help you become a developer faster, it'll help you become a better developer by that, go for it. Just go for it. Don't worry about people who think that's wrong or something like that. So there you go. That's the main thing. So let's go ahead and show you how to create your project folder. Now there are simple steps here. Now again, some people might just look at this and know already how to do it, but I know there are a lot of people who have no idea how to do this. So let's go ahead and show you how to create your project folder. Let me just get everything ready here. So there you go. So right now I am on my, let me bring up my screen here. So what I'll do is I have my folders and everything. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead. Let me just remove my face as well, because you might want to see the entire screen. There you go. So I have my folder here called the downloads folder. And then what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll create a new folder. And I'm going to call this HTML practice. This is the HTML basics. So I'm going to say HTML basics practice 1. Now, I've seen some students who just keep it as a new folder and stuff like that. Please don't do it. Okay. And also when you're practicing, please make sure you do all these things in your Git repository that we discussed in earlier video. So I have the folder now. The next thing for me to do is to go ahead and use VS Code. Okay, so let's go ahead and open VS Code. I have my VS Code up and running here. Let me just get it ready. Okay, there we go. So I've got my VS Code up and running. There it comes. Again, I'm going to remove my face from the video because you may want to see the whole screen. So I have my VS Code here. Now what I need to do is I need to open that folder, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the open button. Okay, there we go. It brings up the Finder. Now here I want to go to downloads. That is where I have my practice folder. So, and then I'm going to open the folder. Okay. So now this step again seems silly, but I've seen people struggle with this. So go ahead, pause the video and just repeat the step any number of times you want. Don't forget to give your folder a meaningful name. Okay, now the next thing is we have to create, as I showed in the PowerPoint, we have to create three files. So this step is done. Let's go ahead and create these 3 files. So let me go back to VS Code, and here I'm going to right click, okay, and then I'm going to say index.html. And then I'm going to create another file. I'm going to call this script.js. Now you don't need script.js right now, but still, because we are learning this, you'll need it eventually. So go ahead and create that as well. And obviously we need to create a style.css. So there you go. 3 parts of any web development project. You have the index file, script file, and JavaScript file. Now there are some basic things we always put when I create a new project. Now, if you look, we have provided the example starter code along with this chapter notes. So please go ahead and take the starter code. I already have my starter code on my computer. So let me bring it up on the screen here. There it is. So I have my starter code. Let me just bring up my screen again. I have kept in our repository, you'll find a folder called Web Development Starter. And another thing I wanted to notice here is that as the video progresses, we will start with the starter folder and we are going to build our, every chapter is like a mini project in its own way. So every chapter we have divided it into different parts. Okay, so that I want you to learn that way. So focus on the first part, and only when you're sure you're able to do the first part without any help, you go ahead and do the second part and third part and fourth part and so on. Sometimes there are like many parts, sometimes there's only one part. So depending on the severity of the topic, we have made more parts or less parts. Same thing with the video. So this is like part 1 of the video. Actually, this is part 0, and then part 1 video, part 2 video, and every video corresponds to a specific part in the folder. Okay, so all right then. So there you go. I have my web development starter folder. So I'm just going to open this. And now what I actually have 2 things now. So let me just remove my face from the screen so you can see the whole thing. So what I have is I actually have 2 things. I have my starter folder, okay, and then I have my practice folder. So the starter folder is for my reference. It is for your reference. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can type out this code when you are practicing with us. Okay. Or if you feel like it, you can simply copy paste the whole thing and it's really not a bad idea. So you can do a combination of it. Some things, if it's too much, you can copy paste. Some things you can type it out. It's really okay. I have no specific preference. Either way, you will eventually become a developer. I prefer the copy paste method because it makes me faster, and also because I'm so old, I already know what is happening. So typing it will not really help my career in any way. So copy pasting when I can, I just go for it. It's not a big issue. So there you go, folks. So let me, also I have my index.html. I'm just going to take this starter code from here, Command A on Mac, Control A on Windows, and then I'm going to come back to my practice folder, and then I'm going to paste it. On the Mac, it's Command V. On the Windows, it's Control V. So there you go. I have that. I'll explain what those things are in the next video. Next, I am going to go ahead to come back here, the script file. Okay, and then I'm going to copy. So again, I'm hiding my face because I want you to see the entire screen as I'm doing this. So I'll go to my script.js file here in my practice folder. I'll just put something here. What is this console log? We'll talk about it in the JavaScript chapter. For now, just roll with it. And finally, I have style.cs file. I'll go here, style.cs file. It has a lot of things, and you'll notice that some things are in green color, some things are not in green color. Don't let that confuse you. So what I'll do is I only want the items that are not in green color. So I'm just going to take this here. I'm just going to dump this here. Now again, there are a lot of things here which are in green color. I'm just going to delete it just to avoid any confusion that you might get. Okay, there are some wavy lines. Just ignore it for now. We'll worry about that later. Just something, just roll with me for now. So there you go, folks. So I have my index.html file. I have my script.js file. And then I have my style.css file. As of now, it's okay. Just ignore these wavy lines for now. But if those things are bothering you, you can just select the whole thing and do command slash. Command slash is for comments. We'll talk about that as the videos continue. On Windows, it is control slash. Okay, so just get rid of it. So now the wavy lines are gone. Here, there are no wavy lines. Everything is great. Here also, everything is great. One thing is, I notice here that line number 8, it says styles.css. I have made the file as style.css. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click and rename this. There you go, that matches. And then finally, what I'll do is I will just go ahead and this is a preview. I mentioned in the earlier video that you need to have an extension called live preview installed because that will help you run your website. You have to install it. It is a requirement. I also have something called prettier. If you want to, that's optional. That's fine. It makes your code look a little pretty. All right, then. So let's come back. So make sure you select index.html and then click on the preview option. And there it is. So that is what you should see on your computer if everything works as expected. Okay, you have to get this. You have to get this. And if you're able to get this with a lot of difficulty or easily, then you are on the right track. So this is what you should see. And of course, you take this and then you go to, let me just open Firefox on my computer here. Yeah, Firefox is up. Now I'm going to put the URL that I copied and I'm just going to, there you go. Okay, and I mentioned before that when you're doing programming, it is good if you have 2 or 3 monitors. Like right now, even when I'm making this video, I have the main monitor where all these things are happening. I also have second monitor for keeping additional things. And sometimes I even get a third monitor. So I have 3 displays when I'm working. So for a developer, I always say, you must eventually, if not right away, get a second monitor and eventually, hopefully, a third monitor. Very, very essential. Okay. And also, as I mentioned, a lot of times when you're coding, you have to look up a lot of information. During my tutorial, I'll be frequently looking at my own code because I don't remember everything. I can't. It's impossible. So every now and then, whenever I'm teaching, just to make sure I'm not making any mistakes, that's the main reason. I don't want to teach something wrong. So what I do is I look at the example code as I'm teaching you. So I'll always be looking here. So it doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. It just means that I'm making sure that I'm not making any mistakes. So similarly, when you are coding, code on the main screen, use a second monitor and a third monitor for looking at information and stuff like that. One more thing there, I can't show it here, but what I normally do is I take this one and I put it on the other monitor. See? Okay, so whenever I'm working on, I code on the main monitor, I look at the output on my second monitor. So that is also something I prefer doing it, because if you have to look, if you're coding and then you have to look at the output, it takes up space. You have to keep clicking here. It takes up space. So again, so if you have a second monitor, so what you can do is you can take, like, look what I'm doing. I mean, I can't show you, but you can see that the Firefox is going away to the other monitor, and I'm bringing it back. So because I can only record one screen, I'm showing you on everything on a single monitor. But ideally, you should have two monitors when you're learning programming, and three is not overkill at all. Maybe four monitors is overkill, but two and three monitors, not a bad idea. So there you go, folks. That is the end of our part zero video. But in the next video, we'll be talking about the basic structure, the basic HTML tags. And I already showed you how to use preview. So next chapter, we'll go and look into the basic tags that you need to know. And this will be your first programming experience. Okay. And this chapter, even though it's very simple, it looks very, very simple. As with all other chapters, I would request you to watch the video, pause the video, repeat the video. When you're learning from a video, you have to, keep backtracking and coming back. Practice, practice, practice. And eventually, this step, you should be able to do without thinking. Like, ideally, it should not take more than 5 seconds to create the folder with all the files and with a simple output. So you have to reach that stage. And I hope you'll do that before moving on to the next video. Okay, so welcome to, this is the part one. If I show you my folder structure here, the game plan that I have, let me just bring up my screen here. So you can see here that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. I have divided this very first chapter into 5 parts. So you will be building, well, what will you be building? So let's go ahead and open that, please. So what exactly is the goal of this specific chapter, which we'll be building in parts? So let me go ahead and bring up that. As usual, I have my folder. There you go. Now again, this is the folder. This code is already shared with you in our GitHub repository. And then there it is. This is the final thing which you're going to be building. So let me bring it up here. Let me go ahead and open that. Let's go and open this here. Okay, there you go. So this is the final project that we'll be building. So it's already running on my computer. So let me just take this here and then I'm going to bring it up on the Firefox. Let's do that. Okay, there you go. So this is what you'll be building at the end of this chapter. It doesn't look nice at all, because this is just your first chapter. You see the image looks really big. We'll make it smaller, no problem, it's fine. But I purposefully left that big on purpose. So there you go. And then, it's like a simple list. Again, none of this looks pretty. None of this looks attractive. It's not supposed to look attractive. Not this early. Anyway, you saw the milestone project. So we will eventually reach a stage where everything does look nice at the end of the course. But right now we are just starting. So we're going to keep things relatively unattractive, so to speak. Again, another image, a simple list. Again, another image, another simple list. And, again, that's a photo which I put. And a simple form with some buttons and stuff like that. And a box and a submit button and things like that. So, like that. And then there you go. It's like, it's not going to submit because, it's not going to go anywhere. So that's fine. So there you go, folks. This is what you will be building. It doesn't look attractive at all, but that's okay. We are just getting started. By the time we reach the end of the course, you will be building the NASA project I talked about. So it will get prettier as the course progresses. So there you go. This is what we are going to build eventually at the end of all the parts, all the video tutorials of this specific chapter. So this is the goal for this specific section. Now, what about the first part? Now, what will you be building in the very first part? Let me go ahead and bring that up as well on the screen for you. So I'm going to go back again. I'm going to put this full project on the other monitor. As I mentioned, while I'm talking to you, I will frequently look at the example code. I do need to look at it. Because one, I can't remember all the code, and second, I don't want to make any mistakes. So I'll keep looking like this. Whenever I'm looking like that, I'm just making sure I'm on the right track. But no, what is the first thing we are doing? So once again, let me open another folder here. What you'll be building in this part of the video. So let's get that here, And here, there it is, part 1. Okay. And here comes the screen. I'm going to remove my face. So there you go. So whenever you want to see the output, you have to make sure the index.html is open. And then there you go. So this is similar to what we had, but there's one small change. Okay, so this is going to be very quick chapter. So let's go. So this is what we're going to know. What is the difference though? Now, this is what we are trying to build. I'm going to keep this on the side a little bit here, and I'm going to go to our practice folder. Now you'll see that if I make this a little bit side by side, they are both giving the same output. So what exactly are we missing here? So what is the difference is in the files. Okay, now if I go to our target, now this is our target. Okay, the first target. Now you'll notice, let me just see, you'll see here on the left side, we have some files which are added. If I go to my practice project, I'll see that it doesn't have those files. So that is your step number 1. You have to get, let me just go ahead and create a slide for that. Let me just put this in the slide. So the idea, hold on, let me just delete this. So your first step is to learn how to add files, in this case images, to your project. Now once again, this may seem like something which is very straightforward and simple. If it is simple for you, then I am happy for you, but then again, as I mentioned, I teach a lot of beginner students, and this step could be a complex step for them. So let's go ahead and do that. The first step is, now before you can add something, you need to make sure that you have it. So you have to use some images. Now there are many ways you can get images. You can use your own personal images, or you can use the images that we have given you. Okay, or you can download some images from the internet. It really doesn't matter how you get the images, what images and stuff like that. So but if you're looking for me to give you an advice, then what the simplest thing you can do is just use the images that we have already given to you, the images that you can take from our GitHub repository, or just download it from the chapter notes. Okay, so let's go ahead. What I'll do is, let's say I have already downloaded it. So what am I going to do? Let me just bring up my example project here. So I have my example project. I'm just bringing it up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to my example project. I have my example project here already downloaded. So I'm going to go select this, select this, select this. So on Windows, you have to use Control when you're selecting multiple files. On the Mac, it's Command. So select these 3 files, right click, copy, and then go to your folder. So where is your project folder? So go here. This is our practice folder, right? The one that doesn't have the images. So right click. You have an option called Reveal in Finder. On Windows, it will be Reveal in Windows, right? So and then you reveal in Finder, and then you go here, right click, and then paste. And now come back to VS Code. You'll see that all the images have been added. You can even make sure it's there. So there you go. That's there. That's there. And that's there. Okay. So there you go. So this is what I wanted you to do on the first part. Once again, it seems like a very simple step. Okay, if it felt like a simple step, I'm really happy for you. You're on the right track. But I know there are a lot of people who are new not only to programming but also computers as well. So this is how you go ahead and add files, in this case images, to your project, and that is the end of your first part of this specific project. In the next part, we'll go ahead and start with some actual HTML coding. All right. All right, so welcome to the second part of this specific chapter. Now, in the previous part, by now you should have a project folder, and you also have an idea on how to add files to your project, specifically images. Okay, now as we continue, one of the things I always tell students is that the best way to learn, and there are many ways to learn, there's no one best way, but the thing is, first start by copying everything that I'm doing. It is a video, so you can pause, retract, slow it down, all those things, right? And then try to replicate what I'm doing. And then once you are comfortable doing whatever it is that I am doing on the screen, go ahead and start experimenting. Now, your experimenting can be something very simple. Like for example, at first, start by using the images that we have given you, maybe. But if you want to experiment, like start with something small, like, hey, you know what? Why don't you get your own images? Maybe walk around your neighborhood, take some photos, use that in your project. That's a very simple experimentation. Same thing with the practice project. Like in this project right now, I've told you to use 3 images. Maybe you should use 10 images. Nothing is stopping you from doing that. So like this. So first step is try to replicate exactly what I'm doing, and then start experimenting. Come up with your own ideas. That's the best way to become a developer. Okay. So all right. So now in this second chapter, as always, I'm going to show you what you'll be doing at the end of this specific video, and then I'll also show you the code, and then I'm gonna, whenever possible, I'll try to write the code. But if sometimes it's too much code, it may take long for me to type everything, in which case I might even copy paste. So I'll do a combination of writing as well as explaining, and sometimes copy pasting the code whenever I'm illustrating something. So in the second part, let me go ahead and get the second part here. So I have my a new VS Code window is already open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open the what you'll be building at the end of this video. So let me quickly go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on open here, and then I'm going to go to my, as I mentioned, you'll be working with a lot of windows, a lot of folders. There's no escaping this. It is coding for you. That's the way it is. So I have my here. So let me bring up my screen again. You'll see here. This is what I'm talking about. Oh, that's the thing. On a Mac, I can't move this window. On Windows you could do that. But anyway, so this is what we'll be building at the end of this specific video. So this is part 2. It's there in the repository that we already shared with you. You can download it or clone it from GitHub, and there it is. And now, as always, open index.html, and then I'm just going to go ahead and say preview. Okay. So this here, we are doing a very, very small amount of change, but also I'm going to go in with some explanations also. So this is also going to be another simple chapter. In the beginning, we are on purpose. I'm keeping everything extremely simple. Some of you might be turned off by this, but I assure you things will get faster and more complex really fast in the upcoming chapter. So there you go. So what is happening? So all we need to do is, if I go to my practice folder, I see that the only thing extra here is there's one extra line. That's it. So that is all we are going to do in this video, but we are also trying to understand what else is happening. So let's jump in. So let me go ahead and keep this example chapter. But first, as I told you, Microsoft PowerPoint for some reason messes up my recording system. So I'm just going to go ahead and come out of the full screen here. Again, don't blame me, blame Microsoft Systems for that one. So let me go back here and bring up the, so I'm going to come here. I'm going to take this. This is what we're going to have at the end of this video. So I'm going to put this on my other monitor so I can look at it as I'm teaching you. Now I'm going to come back to my practice project here. So before we do that extra line of output, first let's understand what's happening here. Okay. So in a project, we have 3 things. Let me remove my face so you can see the entire screen. So in any project, you will usually have 3 files, which we already talked about: index.html, script.js, and style.css. Now in index.html, which is what this chapter is about, at the top of the page, you will find something called as a doc type HTML. Now this is not a computer science degree course. This is a practical course on programming. So I'm not going to go too deep into theory, but ultimately doc type, as the name implies, specifies to the browser. Now please understand, everything you build is eventually designed to run in a browser. So we have to communicate to the browser what is the format, what is the type of file, what is the type of HTML standard, and stuff like that we're using. So that is what this specific tag is doing. So if you want to know more about it, you can do your own research and stuff, but any discussion about some of these theoretical concepts, I'm going to skip because it is beyond the scope of this course. There you go. So next thing is, we also have to mention what is the language. Obviously EN stands for English, so that is what that does. And you'll notice something in HTML. You'll see here that sometimes some tags will open and close on the spot, whereas some tags will have an opening and also a closing. So you kind of get used to this over time. Okay, like the doc type is a open and close, self-closing we call it. Same thing here, self-closing. Whereas the head tag is not self-closing. You do have an opening and a closing tag. So again, this is something you just have to remember. Usually when you're typing, like for example, let me just show you the paragraph tag, which is something we need to add. So when you start typing, the computer will try to help you. And usually if something is supposed to have a closing, the computer will automatically do that for you. So you don't need to remember every time like, hey, does it have a closing tag? Does it not have? Because the computer will take care of it. Okay. One more thing I want to show you guys is sometimes you want to do multiple things. Okay. So let's say I want to have, right now I'm going to say like, hey, this is a paragraph. Okay, now what if I want to have 5 paragraphs? Now what I could do is I can go here, I can say, now you'll see some gray thing coming up there. That's the AI trying to help me. The AI thinks that's what I'm going to do next. So if you are also using AI, you might see that, but if you're not using it, then that is just the AI trying to help me. As I mentioned before, folks, the AI thing can really speed up your learning. So if possible, try to get the AI service. I am using something called as, here you can see it's called GitHub Go Pilot. That's what I am using. It is a paid service. I'm not advertising it. I'm just telling you that I use it. It really helps. It has really made my life better. So it may be worth looking into, but you don't need it for this course. But just letting you know, sometimes when you see something gray, it's just the AI trying to help me. Okay, so there you go. So let's say I want to have 5 paragraphs. So what I'll do, I'll say P, and then I'm going to say this is, before I can do 5 paragraphs, I need 5 paragraphs. So I'm going to say press enter. I'm going to say, again, the AI is trying to help me. There you go. And then there you go, paragraph tag, paragraph tag, paragraph tag. That didn't come right. Okay, there you go. So now I had to do that 5 times. But in VS Code, there is a system. I think it's called Emmet system or something. Okay, so if I want to do something which is repetitive, then instead of doing like this, and let me just delete that. So what I could do is I can say Alt, okay, and then I can click like this. Did you see that? Now there are 2 cursors. Let me show that to you again. Observe closely. So I have the cursor in the first line. I need 5 lines, so I'm just going to press enter 5 times. And then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say press and hold the Alt key. I think it's the same key on both Windows and Mac. And I'm just going to press this 5 times. Okay, so now I have 5 cursors. So now if I say spacebar, look at that. All the 5 cursors are moving at the same time. Now I want the first 2 cursors to be in the same line as the remaining 3 cursors. So I'm going to press Alt, remove this one, remove that one. Oh, the whole thing went away. Let me try it again. So it takes a bit of practice. So there you go. 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 cursors. So now I can type on 5 different lines. So I'm going to say paragraph tag. Look at that. And I can type on all 5 lines. Typing on all 5 lines. It's a very simple trick. Okay, it takes some getting used to. So, but there you go. So whenever you want to type, you want to do some multiple line things, please don't forget to use the Alt key and the Emmet system. Another way you can use it, like let's say, for example, I don't want the last 2 things to say typing on all 5 lines. So what I could do is, again, I can just remove it, and then I'm going to say Alt, and then I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to say changing the last 2 lines simultaneously using Emmet. I think it's called Emmet system. What it's called, is really irrelevant. This feature is there in VS Code. It really helps you, especially in web development. And because a lot of time you're repeating a lot of same lines again and again. Very useful, very useful. So don't forget to use this feature. Okay. So now coming back, so head tag is where you put head related items in any web page. So usually a HTML page will have a head section, and then it will have a body section. So head section is where we put tags such as the meta tags, which gives some meta information. You have probably heard of the word meta. Meta usually means something that is related to something, but it doesn't actually appear in the output. So you have a tag, it's this char set. is called character set. In programming, we have something called as character encoding. So here we are using the encoding called as UTF-8. So again, this is not a theory course. So if you are interested to find out about encoding, hopefully you can go online and learn more about it. Same thing, we have something called a viewport. Viewport is the the window where the output shows up. We have to mention the width, the device width and scale and stuff like that. Finally, the title is the title. You'll see here what title, like for example, if I look in the top right corner here, if I go ahead and change this, changing the title, you'll see that the title is changing. So that's what the title does. Okay, and the next tag is the link tag, which can be used to link a lot of things, but right now our priority is to link the style sheet. So you have a style sheet called styles.css. So that's what we are doing here. Oh, the spelling is a little bit wrong, so let me go ahead and change that to style.css. But right now we don't have any css, it's actually empty. So it won't have any effect, but it's good to know these things ahead of time because we'll be doing some css in upcoming videos. So that's what is happening in the head section. Now let's move on to the body section quickly. The body section is where you write the bulk of your code. So whatever is there in your body, that is going to come in your output. So let's see here, the main tag is used to indicate the main content. Now, for example, there are specific tags which are useful. You don't have to use many of these tags. You can actually get the same output without the main tag. So if I want to, I can, again, I'm going to just go ahead and delete these things. See, there you go. So I can get rid of this main tag and the output is still pretty much the same. But there are some conventions, there are some standard that people follow. So we are following the same standards here. So I'm going to use the main tag to put all the main content. We have other things like the header tag, the footer tag, which are useful for header and footer information. So there you go. That's what the main tag is. It helps you organize things, like a main content or something. And then let me remove this. Yeah, there you go. So now the next tag is here is the h1 tag. H1 tag is the header tag, which you can see here. It gives you like really big text. Whereas the H2 tag is like the same big text but slightly smaller. And we can continue this trend. I can have another tag called H3 tag, which is again like bold, and you can see as I'm typing, the output comes on the right side. That is being done by the preview extension. So bold stuff but smaller than H2. So there you go. That's the H1, H2 and H3 tag. And of course the paragraph tag is the paragraph tag, which shows all these things. So let's compare what we have done with our example output. So let me bring my example, our target for this video, and I look at the output. So there you go. So we have understood what these different tags mean, what are opening, self-closing and things like that. And also we were supposed to use a paragraph. So it looks identical, but it's not similar, but not identical. So let's make them identical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this here. I just want this text. So I'm going to just copy this. As I said, nothing wrong in copying. So I don't want this extra line here. So I don't want to delete it. So I'm just going to comment it. Okay, so it's gone. If you want to comment on the Mac, it's command slash. On Windows, it is control slash. So there you go. So that's the output, looking a little bit similar. So now I just want one sentence called see more photos in our gallery. So again, I'm going to take this first paragraph and I'm going to change this to this. Oh, sorry. Hold on. I think I didn't copy it properly. Well, let me just do that again. Oh, there's no copy option in this one. So I'm going to have to go to Firefox. Okay, so I'm going to go to Firefox. I want, 1 second. I'm going to take this line from the project here. There you go. Okay, just carefully copy. If you want, you can type it as well. Okay, and what I want is I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to close this. So I'll come back to my practice project and I'm going to put this here. There you go. And I don't want these extra lines. You can either delete it or comment it. I'm just going to comment it. So there you go. So I look at my practice project. This is what you're also practicing with me. And I look at my target folder and they both have identical outputs. And that is the end of this chapter. So once again, as I keep reminding my students, please try to replicate everything that I did in the video. And then before you move on to the next chapter, try to remix it. Like I've shown you using two types of H1 tag. Go ahead and use all the H1 tags, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5. And then of course, paragraph. I have shown you one. I actually had many paragraph, but I kind of commented them. So you can try different paragraphs, try different sentences, and so on and so forth. And if you're really curious, you can go online, or if you have the AI enabled, you can find out what is this doc type, what is this character encoding, what is it UTF-8, what is this viewport, and stuff like that. Now, discussing those things is beyond the scope of our course, but there is nothing to stopping you from just learning all these things and simply becoming a better developer. Okay, so there you go, folks. That's end of part 1 of this specific chapter. I'll see you guys in the next part.